You know the expression, I'm sure you've heard this expression, how can I miss you if you won't go away? Do you know what I'm saying?
Hey,
So
yeah,
when I think about an artist, I think about that in terms of their style.
yeah,
When if I you got to build up, it's like supply and demand, hype
yeah,
and controlling all that. There needs to be a cascade. There needs to be a decay. That's the word I
yeah,
want, of hype for your art. So for me, I made Digits. It's a very grounded, realistic, in terms of its visual aesthetic and all that kind of stuff, um, mockumentary type movie. I'm working on Terror House and Haunted, which horror movies, they're slightly more stylized, but still I'm trying to base them in grounded reality where it feels very kind of gritty in real life. I've
yeah.
already determined that whatever project I work on after that to bring to life, it's going to be so crazy stylized, it's going to make Speed Racer look like a documentary. Like
Awesome.
I'm I'm coming to the point where I, as an artist, am getting bored with my own work. And
Mm,
that's when I feel like, yeah, I've gotten set in the motion where it's like, okay, I can write it like this or I can do that. Same thing with my writing. So like for Haunted, I have a whole trilogy mapped out in my head. Like every crazy writer, creator has a whole franchise built on this one idea that they think is hitting. And already in the outline that I have for the second film, I have what I've called a protagonist switch mapped out. So that's something you don't particularly see in movies these days, where you start with one person who's the clear-cut hero protagonist of the movie,
yeah,
and then halfway through the movie, there's a gear shift, and all of a sudden, this other side character that was there but was kind of
yeah.
sidekicky or whatever takes the center stage and carries the rest of the movie to the end.
I like
And
that kind of stuff a lot. Yeah, because
yeah,
like you're saying, it isn't something you see too often, and it's kind of nice when it happens. I mean, in my opinion, it is. Like,
there's
for
so much
example,
benefit to it.
yeah, for example, like one of my favorite examples is the manga for Akira. So Akira, there's the movie, which is about 2.5 hours, right? And it's this animation spectacle. The manga is like 6 volumes. It's gigantic. It covers so much space, and there's an entire volume, and this has stuck with me for forever. There's an entire volume where the main character Kaneda, he's not there at all. He like I can't remember quite what happens, but like he just is gone. And so you suddenly have this time to really sit in with the rest of the world and kind of
Mm,
get to know all these other characters who have been important to the plot, but have always been kind of in the background or to the side or, not in the forefront. And this is a bit of a different example. It's not necessarily a protagonist switch, but it is like just because I don't feel like that even this happens that often in stories where you just get to see and hang out with the other characters that much.
hmm
Because I think the way that storytelling in Western culture is very heavily, you know, what's the word? Like hero of a thousand faces kind of a thing where you have one person, it's their story, and they go through their hero's journey.
hmm
And I think, I mean, for myself personally, and kind of hearing what you're talking about, I like to think about how it's multiple heroes' journeys and it's allowing them to meld together into this like heroes fabric essentially where you have all these
hmm
threads weave together, which I mean, I will give like the most recent Star Wars trilogy had a certain amount of that sort of aspect to it, especially in the last film. The last film really felt like it was all these different threads coming together. As much as I don't even care for that movie, I do like that part of it where it's
hmm
like you have all these, and I mean that's similar to the very first trilogy. But anyway, you have all these, you have all these people come together, and you have like this ensemble of
hmm
heroic fiction, basically. But I'm
Right.
sorry, please go on with what you were talking about earlier in regards to your own
Oh
plot. From
well. See, the thing is, and the reason why I wanted to do that protagonist switch not only because it's, you know, like how you talked about with Western culture and the art and storytelling, how it centers on one character and that's it. For the first film of Haunted, the way the screenplay was written, I isolate that character's perspective as the only perspective you see the entire film for purpose, not because she's the hero, but because the driving force behind the entire movie is this mystery plot of, is this real? Is this actually happening? Are people getting murdered, or is this all part of the show? So in most horror movies, you know, somebody has to go out to the woodshed because the lights went out and turn the circuit breaker, and then we follow
Right.
Timmy go to the woodshed, and then the killer kills Timmy, and then we go back to our final girl who's in the cabin wondering where Timmy is, and da 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 da, and it's all spelled out. For me, when I was writing Haunted, the mindset for me was, it's better if we stick with the girl, we stick with our hero. Timmy goes to the woodshed. Timmy never comes back. We don't know what happened to Timmy. Did Timmy get killed, or did Timmy just clock out for the night and say, all right, I've done my part in casting doubt into this girl's mind, so I don't have to continue doing this? And that raises questions in the audience's mind and puts them on the edge of the seat. So for me, I'm exploring that concept, that artistic style, I guess you could say, or execution of storytelling in this
Yeah.
film so much that I am just, for lack of a better word, raping that idea and that concept for every nugget of tension and interest that I can find. I'm leaving no stone unturned, no corner uncovered, none of that. So when I get to another movie, everybody's going to think, okay, who's our protagonist going on the tour this time? Are they going to find out evidence? Da 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 da. For me, it was like, no, I've done that story. I'm bored. I don't want to tell it again. But this concept allows me to do a protagonist switch where I can have somebody come in who was a friend of the main character in the first movie, who's now going on the haunt to try to find the answer for themselves. Halfway through the movie, they get a different answer or something. I don't want to spoil anything. And somebody else who's either in the tour or that or like one of the people who participates in the haunt, um,
Mm-hmm.
it takes the lead of the rest of the movie. And that to me was interesting enough for me to revisit the concept and further my themes through a different vehicle. So it was kind of like what I say, I'm not going to be a hypocrite and try and hold the artists that I love to a different standard than I hold myself. I don't want to be repetitious. There's a time and a place for repetition, don't get me wrong, but I don't want to be repetitious so much in my style. I think my style is going to be trying things and failing and doing new things.